Hello everybody, welcome back to the energy tips, this time for week 33, that is for the 10th till the 16th of August 2020, called Honey Me. We're going to go into the depth of what this means, but I first and foremost want to thank all of you heart warriors and Patreons for your support, for your dedication to this inner work, and also for showing up here by listening and in that way also participating in this reflection of the deeper inner aspects of our journey, of our energetic sensitivity, of our self-mastery, and some of the strategies that can help us to better deal with those occurrences here in our time. Now, we are still in the middle of a lot of uncertainty and unclarity. It's quite chaotic right now, and the chaoticness is still building, so we're feeling this time warp, this pressurized build-up still, many of us, and in that we are sort of fluctuating between being hyperactive and trying to just feel busy, and at the same time also autopilot and not really seeing where our time goes, and time just seems to fly by right now. Before I go into the topic here of this next week, I want to point out one specific thing that has to do with these time capsules that I always talk about. Okay, time capsules are what we call rocks in time. Those are things that seem to have a higher proclivity to happen in the future. We are in the middle of such a time capsule right now, one that affects the progression in 2021, starting in the middle towards the end of January. So right now, it's like almost a repeat of what we've experienced this January in 2020. And this is why we have to take a bit of an inventory here right now if we want to get some kind of glimpse of a roadmap here through this uncertainty and through this chaos. So it's a very important time right now. I have been running a little late with my energy tips here lately for other reasons. I've shared this with you. We simply founded our own school here and running all the preparations right now. And there's just a lot of distraction through that. But the point here is, and I want to use this as an example, if we don't take what we have learned from these last 6 months, all right, then we have a very high chance of just getting swept away by this chaos that is now leading to its apex, okay? So these next 6 months here, or the second half of 2020, is going to be extremely challenging for all of us, and not of doom and gloom or apocalypse or anything like this, but it really challenges our ways of thinking, our ways of seeing the world, our ways of interacting with the world. It challenges our worldview, okay? And with it, of course, also the things that we then conclude, all right, that we then, contextualize for ourselves and how we deal with this. So what I'm seeing here from an energetic point of view is that it is extremely important right now to be awake and to be conscious. All right, I talk about this in many different ways, and it's really just always the same thing, and it has to do with present moment awareness. But it also indicates that we cannot really afford to not show up right now, because the way things are set up in our society right now, and this is pure outer collective stuff, okay, is based on untruth, is based on lies and delusion. It's based on fear. It's based on agendas. And if we don't have a clear stance here with ourselves, all right, it will be very difficult from an just pure energetic standpoint to feel any kind of progression or resolution or something that could make us feel that what we're doing has a meaning. So what I'm pointing at here is that the way for you to deal with these times is not some fancy techniques here and there and so forth, but to just cultivate this really strong presence of your awareness right now. And ideally, of course, you know this, we want to cultivate a loving attentiveness, a loving intention here with ourselves and the world. And in order to even be able to make sense of any of what is happening right now and to see a future and to have hope for humanity and to be motivated and optimistic about our own lives, we have to show up right now. And what I'm going to introduce here as a little sort of catchphrase, okay, honey me, is something that has developed here through the energy coaching with the heart warriors. It's a spontaneous sort of combination of words as opposed to honey-do list, okay, to come up with a honey-me list. And if you're not American, you might not know what a honey-do list is, but that's basically sort of what we form either in the practical or just in our minds about what we want the other person to do for us, or so that things, are better for the relationship. So it's a sort of a delegation of needing to make changes, an externalization of that. And instead of doing that, to reverse this whole perspective here of, if I want things to be better, if I want to progress, if I want to, feel that there is an improvement of, my relationship with myself, my relationship with the world, then I need to honey me. Okay, so the energy tips here this week are going to lead into motivating you to make something like a honey me list. Okay, and that's nothing different really from the usual talk about self-love and self-care, but I need you to understand that this is something that you are now in full responsibility, to show up and cultivate for yourself. All right, nobody else is going to be able to do this for you. Now, the good news about this is that it can lead to an extremely high degree of self-adequacy and self-awareness, because when we are actually in this honey me mode, right, we begin to pay much more attention to our needs and to our wants and to our goals, and maybe we need to change them, maybe we need to modify or correct something there. That's fine, but we realize the things that we have learned. We also realize the things that we have progressed in, even though most of these things are intangible, all right, but we can see what really makes me. Okay, so when I talk about physical connection, for example, I often, in energy coaching, I often recommend to the heart warriors that they start talking to their own body in a honey me, type of version, namely, hey honey, how are you doing today? And I had a very interesting conversation with my sister today that also brought this up when she said that, oh, I normally don't feel my body unless something is wrong with it. And this is then where I remembered that, this physical connection and talking to myself in this loving, caring, compassionate voice, that's something that some of us have never actually experienced. So I want to just point this out for you as probably the most important energy tip here for this ongoing week and the next 6 months. Okay, to go into this place with yourself instead of seeing yourself as somebody that needs to function, or that has to perform in a certain way, that you care for yourself more in that way, that you are concerned or, sort of care about the things that don't necessarily are broken or flawed or wrong. You don't have to wait till your body signals things to you in form of pain or imbalance or dysfunction, but to go into this honey me place with yourself at all times, preferably, maybe in form of a routine that you adapt for, like every morning, every evening, or combine this with self-grooming, or combine this with, taking the space for yourself where you actually connect with yourself in this way. So the specific components here of this week that have to do with this build-up that I mentioned earlier leads to something that is quite difficult for us to process, guys. Just a reminder here for all of you to take the time to listen to the emotional processing workshop. Those are 4 hours with sharing and exercises that allow you to become more aware of your internal emotional handling and how you see emotions and how you feel about your emotions, and also what they make you do, whether they make you go into this autopilot, whether they make you go into your self-soothing and the more addictive component of your coping mechanisms, or whether they make you react in a way that you can't control them, and where your regulation it becomes very difficult for you. These things are very important here in these months to come, because right now the collective energies are very corrupted and corrupting. Okay, so there's an emotional corruption that is going on right now, and there's an eruption of corruption at the same time, which I think is very cool. I almost called this energy tip video corruption, because it has so many different meanings. Okay, so we are also seeing, obviously, the continued revelations of truth in politics, in economy, in society, and so forth, collusions and agendas and secrecy and so forth. All these things are naturally coming up more now, that people are becoming a little more demanding, okay, where they want answers, where they expect their leadership, the countries or the CEOs or, the influencers, to come up with solutions. And this is not happening. So what this creates is a big sort of momentous of frustration in us, because we don't actually feel things progress. And with ourselves, it means we feel the same way, because we're not actually really feeling that whatever we have right now, or whatever we can do right now, is enough. So you got to understand that, never enough or never good enough, things that I've addressed in the articles here this week, that they also lead to frustration, because they can never really be satiated. It can never really feel to you that you are actually moving towards something like betterment. Okay, this is sort of caught in this capsule right now. Okay, that's why self-care, taking things into your own hands, and claiming the self-authority is so important right now. The example here with the school that I've mentioned last week is something like that. Okay, this isn't about marketing. This isn't about. I mean, obviously, it goes into my sort of what I feel as my mission or my life's work here anyway, because eventually that was part of my goal. But the reason why I decided to found a school and create a safer and more conducive learning environment for my 6-year-old son is because I didn't want to wait for anybody to tell me what it has to be for him, okay? And this is a consequence of consciousness work, all right? For the consequence of me systematically training myself to think freely, okay, and to act freely and to claim and to live the authority to make my own choices. Now, granted, some of these, administrative decisions with schooling, for instance, aren't as free as they are here in the United States. So, in that regards, there's a lot more freedom here in the United States. Many of your countries wouldn't even allow you such a thing, type of school that I'm forming right now. But I just want to give you a practical example here of how we can just sit there and wait for others to resolve things for us or to give us solutions so that we can feel that we can progress, or we can take things into our own hands. And you will feel a big shift coming in here over this next weekend, guys. There is one of these triggers. So right now we're in the midst of this pain threshold trigger. Okay, we are like, this isn't going to go any further. We're very, very frustrated, and we almost feel like a little bit betrayed too, because there's a lot of sort of karmic repetition that we can see right now. Okay, towards the next weekend. Okay, we're going to feel a big shift here, and this is not all good, guys, because there is this eruption component to this that will lead to a release to ego stuff in people, between people, but also in the masses. So we can expect the things such as mass demonstrations or social media memes or hacks and so forth, because people aren't happy. Okay, it triggers ego stuff in people, and it also unfortunately makes it very clear to us here how our societies are a mirror of sort of the pathology of narcissism. Narcissism really as part of what we have been conditioned to survive this society, okay, be it through social media or through consumerism or materialism, or just this polarized, you're either on my side, or if you're not on my side, you're against me. Okay, those are all pathologies of narcissism, guys, and that's why some of the workshops and the public talks that I'm doing here over this weekend, the self-healing call, the public training call on Sunday at 3 p.m. will talk about the pathology of narcissism, but in particular the empath narcissist problem. This is a link that you can share with family, friends. This is a public talk, all right. So what we really need to tap into here, and this is where this shift can come in handy for us, because whatever it is that we come up with, as we are consciously and freely thinking out of this competence that we feel within ourselves and the freedom that we give ourselves, okay, those things, those corrections, or those new directions that we can develop out of those free thinking and feeling, this heart-mind thinking, okay, they can be very, very successful here, and there will be direct progress that you will be able to witness, especially in January 21. So what I'm saying is, do not summer sleep through this time right now. You have to wake up. There is a war going on out there, yes. And that war is about your attention. That is about your energy. And you can illuminate the spiritual components of that, which I will do on Sunday in the Truth Talk called Angels and Demons. Or you can look at the psychological, the emotional repression and helplessness and powerlessness that leads to frustration and anger in people. And you can look at it from a sociological, financial, economic point of view that leads to implosion and recession and collapse. So all that said, okay, it does not mean that this is a bad situation. It means that there's a huge opportunity, and I've already been observing this in the last 3 months, to out of that confrontation with untruth, to become more aware, to see the necessity to show up for myself, for my values, and for my needs, and my wants, and my boundaries, and to make a change. And if you want to know when a good time is to make a change, it is right now. It's literally these days here in this week that have an extremely high manifestation potential for you. All right, so it's very, very important that you go into the self-motivated place and that you check on yourself if you are actually showing up for yourself, or if you're still waiting, or if you've externalized some of your power, if you're in dependencies, and you tell yourself these lies, that you can't really do anything about it. Those are lies, guys. That's self-deception, okay? It's a collusion illusion of the ego and narcissism and our collective narcissism right now. And you're going to have to really see through this by showing up for yourself. So contemplate maybe about how you measure success, and how progress could even look like for you. Is, becoming a better coper really a measurement, being able to better suck things up, or being able to continue to just pay your bills but never really getting anywhere? Is that really progress? Every single study that was done on success and happiness and how people measure it showed one thing. Actually, it showed two things. It showed that moderate but consistent challenge and even pain, overcoming, sort of the pain of comfort zone, that seems to make people happier. And the second thing it showed is that what makes people happy is the conscious witnessing, the conscious observation that they are progressing in something. All right, so all this talk about routines, about, showing up for ourselves and, really sort of working with these shifts and, being fully present in the moment has a lot to do with our happiness and fulfillment. So all these people that are frustrated right now because they can't see any meaning, any purpose, and they don't know what their role is, it is one reason that makes people go into this depression, and that is that they're not showing up for themselves. Even those of us who say to themselves, oh, and I've tried so many times and it's not working. Okay, well, then you need to change something. Then don't do the same thing over and over again. Just simply shift, okay, to something outside of your comfort zone maybe, or to something that comes outside of the box, or for something, that you just do just for the fact that that you have a comfort zone, that you have an ego, and that the only way to get past it and to feel better about yourself is to actually challenge that. So some of you hardcore people, like the hard warriors, I motivated all of you to challenge your ego every day, okay? Because if you can cultivate that, you don't have a problem with change. So this is here sort of the essence of, like understanding really what brings inner peace to us, because without really showing up for ourselves, without freely thinking, without even knowing, what to think and how this thinking process happens in us, guys, you're not able to discern truth. And right now, this is crucial. Right now, we are in the middle of this war that I mentioned earlier, and it's not what you think. It's a war of truth. It's the war of us recognizing that we have this power to freely think, and that we have the power to be part of this change. All right? If you think that it's somebody else's job, okay, to be the authority in being you, and there's many different patterns and behaviors that express that, one of which is codependency. That's why I talk about this so much right now. But there's many others. Narcissism is the same thing. All these and some other behaviors like addiction and dependencies in general require and are dependent on the outside, on an external source of either power or reassurance or validation, okay, for us to know what we can do and what we can't do. And that is not freedom, guys. That is this delusion that I talked about earlier. So I really want to leave the energy tips here without going through the details of, these routines and self-care mechanisms, because I've talked about this so many times already. I want to leave it here and just make it really important for you to understand that it's now all about you really showing up for yourself, okay? The chakras involved here in this week are primarily the barrier between our third and our fourth chakra. So it's still what blocks our heart connection, what makes us feel disconnected, what pulls us into our false self, what pulls us into our coping, what pulls us into our narcissism and into our dependencies, okay? And at the same time, a very strong first and sixth chakra component. Those are the fundamentals of our belonging, of our being here, of our incarnation, really, and of our ability to see truth, to have an expanded view of the world. In other words, extremely karmic. So that's why in the collective right now, you will observe, even though it's just sort of underpinning right now, because there's so much rah-rah. Okay, the media is really falling into this sort of censored and restricted sort of propaganda machine that is going on right now. So it's hard to pinpoint these news that are showing this to you. But there's a lot of like really fundamental karmic collective stuff going on right now. Now, all that said, remember to be pragmatic. Remember to include perhaps even something like a new plan, for your life, how you want to live, how you want to make money. You have a 6 months window here, but you only have a window of like about 3 to 4 weeks now to work with the existing financial conditions. Okay, things will shift very rapidly come September. Okay, in our economies here, currencies and so forth. So with that, you have a lot of opportunity. In general, if you don't depend on a loan or anything like that, if you don't depend on, if you have your own cash flow, if you don't depend on, say interest rates or money market, you should be fine. But whatever it is that you now change here as a sort of a corrected life plan will be very successful starting by the beginning of next year, okay? Because it's under a good start, if you will. And last thing I want to make you guys aware of, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the time of meteorite showers. If you pay conscious attention to the night sky, you're going to see wonderful falling stars, shooting stars, and maybe you use those and sort of the superstition around it, maybe to make a wish, to really go into the practical part of changing something here. The spiritual view of meteor showers around this time of the year, guys, anybody who's interested, you might find this an interesting fun fact, is that these meteor showers actually bring more molecular iron, Fe, to this planet. And iron is sort of the Archangel Michael's element to increase truth. It is the weapon against untruth. The sword of truth is made out of iron. So yeah, it's wonderful to go into some of the mythology of some things, but maybe it helps you to connect with this part of yourself, the spiritual warrior that has always felt that there is more there. Okay, and as you're watching these shooting stars, you can see this as a strengthening of your own inner sword of truth, your own inner ability to discern truth and to freely think. I'm sending out the next energy tips in a few days already. I'm just glad I could touch base with you and catch up, and see you soon. Bye-bye.